Hi everyone, I'm Julia with the Berkeley Judicial Institute, back with another installment of Judges in the Community. Today, we're joined by Judge Faruqui to share this inspiring civic engagement work he has done for the past several years in Washington, D.C. and beyond. Good morning, Judge Faruqui. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here. I can't wait to dive into your journey and insights. But just to start out, would you mind briefly sharing a little bit more about who you are, where you sit in your personal judicial history?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me here. It's really excited to be virtually in Berkeley. I think I'd probably prefer right now, it's getting pretty cold in DC to be there in real life. But I am a U.S. Magistrate Judge here in Washington, D.C. at the Federal Court, D.C. District Court. I feel very lucky to be here. If you look out the window on the other side of the building, we're right across the street from the Capitol building. So it's really humbling to come into work. I actually bike in every day. It's always the best part of my day is, I pass by the Supreme Court, Library of Congress, and come down the hill, the Capitol building. And I joke with one of my friends from law school that, I never did he think, I was like, oh, do you think any of our professors thought that, I'd be here or he'd be where he is? And he always jokes that his response was immediately, his wife did not think any of us would be here. And so it is very humbling. But yeah, it's thrilling to be on this court. It's super interesting. We get a lot of work because of being in DC that is pretty unique. And in my role as a magistrate judge, I've got to see a lot of interesting criminal and civil matters. So it's been pretty great. Prior to being a judge, I was a federal prosecutor here in Washington, D.C., and also for a few years in St. Louis while my wife was getting her PhD out there. I got to work on financial crimes and the sort of nexus to cybercrime and national security. I didn't even know what a federal prosecutor was. I never imagined, I didn't know what a clerkship was when I was in law school. I was pretty focused on pretty significant financial burden that I had from undergrad and law school. And so none of this was on my radar. And I just think that it's a lot of serendipity, a lot of luck, but it also is just why I think it's such an incredible career path getting into the law, is that there are a lot of doors that you may not even know exist, and then they can get opened, and it's exciting to go through them and find out what's behind.
Thank you so much for your amazing introduction. Honestly, it's such an honor to speak with you and, hear about your story, especially, your journey through law and in the judiciary. So now diving straight into the core of our conversation today, what project are you here to share with us and where did it all begin?
Yeah, so I want to talk about civics outreach. It's really important to me. I've been very lucky to work on a national portfolio related to that, but starting really at the local level, and it's twofold. So it's a lot of it is with Title I schools in the DC area, but there are also schools throughout the country. We have a program coordinator here who works with homeschools, schools in rural area that might not have great internet access. It started with that sort of nugget of really learning and being concerned to learn, because when I grew up back in my day, there was civics education, and that my wife's a scientist, so I'm very pro STEM education. There's been a lot of focus since then on surging resources to STEM education, and at times it came at the expense or there's just not been a lot of resources to fund civics education. And so I got super interested in civics education just to seeing that there was this huge deficit when the national coordinator is like, hey, we have schools calling us all the time, and they need people that I think can speak hopefully from an apolitical perspective to students, because they're not looking for to get involved necessarily in partisan issues, but they just want to have some like basic structure. And it became very clear to me is that this is not limited to just students and schools. As I said, here it's throughout the country and it's all ages. And so we started also doing some outreach again through Rebecca Fanning. She's the national coordinator who does this. Any teachers, I don't know who watches your podcast. I'm sure there's a wide audience, but teachers or community people who are interested, Rebecca Fanning's information's on the Administrative Office of Courts website. She just receives and fields these requests and finds judges and puts them to work on these opportunities, and it's very rewarding. And so she sort of then started looping us in to community colleges. Another place that it got involved is in prison. So doing education about what is the U.S. legal system. So very foundational stuff, but I think arguably the people who are most impacted by the legal system. And so civics education is about jurisdiction, state versus federal. We talk about all sorts of different things. The Bill of Rights, we have Bill of Rights Day coming up in December. We're actually doing a national initiative throughout the entire U.S. Judiciary, federal judiciary, to try to get judges in classrooms, judges in where there's senior homes, in jails, wherever it might be, to talk about civics and civic education and civic discourse. So it's something I really enjoy. It's probably, I'd say, the best part of the job. It's important to resolve people's cases. It's interesting work, but the chance to get in front of students of any age, be they again people who are incarcerated, people in homeschools, community college, or elementary schools, and talk about here's the foundations of our U.S. government. Here's how you need to participate. It's a chance for me to get off the sidelines, honestly, which I think a lot of people feel right now, a sort of malaise. We're just frustrated with, at times it feels like it's hard to find an entry point to get involved with trying to lift the national discourse in a way that's productive and healthy. And this is the place to do it.
Yeah, no, I know you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'm curious as to how, when you're approaching like, broadening civic education across diverse groups of students, is there any roadblocks or things that, create as an obstacle, and what kind of inspired you to overcome those, or how has your work grown to what it is today?
Sure. Well, I could start with the inspiration part and then answer the roadblocks, because the inspiration hopefully causes you to go past the roadblocks. I think probably twofold. One is being the child of immigrants. My wife is immigrant, her family immigrated here to the United States. It is extremely gratifying to be here in this country and see the opportunities it's given me. I'm so proud of the country and the opportunities I've got. Like I said, across the street from the Capitol, it's really humbling. And so I think that is part of my inspiration to get involved in civics education. I get to do naturalization ceremonies, of course. Probably the best part of the job is when you're here and you get to be the first literal person to say, welcome to my fellow Americans, right? You're the first person to greet them. That's amazing. And so there's a real sense of inspiration to me, is that I've had this story of what I think is intended, the hope for what this country is, of opening the doors of opportunity to people. My parents came here with those dreams, and then to be able to have accomplished through the support of community, so many teachers. I mean, it's just the people who have pushed me forward to get where I am is more than a cruise ship full of people. It's very large, and I'm very lucky. So I think that is what in part inspires me. The other part is just thinking more about what my parents specifically go through. My dad worked very hard. He was a one-person small business owner and was really worked so hard to try to get me these opportunities. Unfortunately, passed away very suddenly when I was young. My mom was community college educated and worked as a single mom to then raise me. After we lost my dad, the sacrifices that they have made, I see in a lot of the people that I speak to. And so when I mentioned that my mom went to community college, I think a lot of times people are pretty surprised, because they think like, oh, this guy, fell out of the womb when he was on his way to Harvard and knew exactly what he was doing, when that couldn't have been further from the truth. And I appreciate demystifying at least a little bit of the judiciary, or maybe humanizing, for people to see like, hey, we are real people too, just like Us magazine, that where celebrities are real, just like us, judges are just like us. We have real backgrounds and real adversity, many of us in different ways, that connect us with the people in the courtroom. And I think it's important for people then, it is in many ways selfish, because I want people to feel connected and have trust in the judiciary, because if they don't, we have no military, we have no police, the judiciary. We only, have our rulings followed based on our legitimacy, and that comes from trust. So in terms of roadblocks, I think probably dovetailing on that is people don't have a lot of faith in the judiciary right now. And so when I offer to go out and speak to a class, I think people are curious, like, what's your agenda? And when they come there, I think they have questions like, hey, I don't like this decision the Supreme Court made. I don't like this decision that a state court made. Or I'd like, hey, I know this judge and my family members in front of them, and they really treated them poorly. And my answer to them always is, I'm a public servant. This is the complaint box is always open. People should be letting me know what we could do better. We're accountable, although not directly, like the people in Congress or the executive, but we need to be accountable. And so I think our accountability just comes from listening sessions, going and hearing people. And so students ask hard questions. They ask questions about inequity. They ask questions about hot button civil rights issues, and they want to know why judges are getting involved and how they are. So I try my best to explain, what we do to follow the law. And a lot of times my answer isn't going to satisfy in terms of the content. Like, oh, well, if you're unhappy about X decision, I'm going to explain to you how it happened. But it's not going to be like someone's like, okay, now you're right. I don't believe in X, I believe in Y. That's not why I'm there. I just want them to know the process and know that the judges who are making that decision were making their best effort. But I might be a little naive, but I do believe from the feedback that Rebecca has shared and what we've seen from students, they're asking not just me, but other judges to come back, that the willingness to go out there and say, like, here's what we did, here's how we do it, here's why judges do what they're doing, give us a chance that does make it impact and that it can mitigate that roadblock a little bit, start chipping away for people to be like, well, maybe these are people just like us and they are trying their best, and we make mistakes. No one, I don't think the court has ever said the court is infallible. And because obviously there's appellate courts and decisions get overturned all the time. And the Supreme Court changes its trajectory on issues. And that reflects what we all know, but we need to say, and people need to hear us, is that I tell people, I just put on my Halloween costume every day for work. That doesn't stop me from being a human being and making mistakes.
Amazing. And when you reflect on the experiences of some of these students or participants that you come in contact with, are there any stories or moments in particular that stand out or speak to the impact that you've been able to make on your community and in these educational institutions?
Sure. I'm sure there's many. I'm just going to try to think of a couple. But so in terms of particularly the high school students, it's been amazing. We had a student who we did one of our presentations. So what we typically do is it's called Candid Conversations, and it started during the pandemic, so it was remote, and go in person to classrooms as well. As I said, we're trying to do a national initiative on Bill of Rights Day in December, but there was a student who followed up afterwards and just during that conversation, we talk about a heart reason, why to become a judge. I have lawyers come in who talk about that, and non-lawyers as well, because the judiciary is not simply lawyers. We have courtroom deputies, court reporters, bailiffs, marshals. We have interpreters. We have tons of people who are part of the system. We have IT folks who come in and make sure that any of the courtroom technology works. And so I think it was extremely heartening for me, just again, when people have a somewhat lost faith or concerns about the judiciary as an institution, to have students come in from one group in particular. There were students from community that felt very maligned by the criminal justice system. When I talked about my experiences with growing up with my dad and my mom, and how my community has sort of filled in gaps for me, to have a student who wrote back afterwards that this had opened their eyes, that they never thought they could become a lawyer. They never thought that, let alone a judge, and that they saw now that the door was open. So, I mean, going back to sort of my initial point, these doors were opened for me by many people. I had many people pushing me forward. I never thought I would be in a position to do the same for others. And I see now, when you have the honorable in front of your name, that little title in the front, when you just nudge, you can kick a door wide open, I guess. And this student talking about her challenging background growing up and how she didn't even think that she would have these opportunities. It was pretty cool. And so then we followed up. Rebecca always says the world is for those who follow up, and the student followed up and came with her parent, and we sat down. I think her parent couldn't believe that she was sitting right here in the judge's chambers. This is not the view she had of the judiciary. So maybe it was only two people, in air quotes, I'd say, that were changing their hearts and minds. But my sense was that they will talk to other people about it. And I am quite sure that that young woman is going to do some pretty incredible things in the future. And to be someone who gets to be a cheerleader for her, to continue to support her, hopefully through, helping her find internships or things like that I've tried to do, that was very meaningful. The quick second part of that, I'd say, is Anytime that you can leave the jail and hear from criminal defendants that they have a little more faith in the judicial system, that's pretty heartening. So recently we had another judge that went with myself to meet with a group called Young Men Emerging. It's at the D.C. jail. It's a really incredible program where they have two OGs. They're like in their early 40s, and then everyone else is 18 to 20, 22. And they have them living together in a unit. And it starts at 7 a.m. They're doing book club, group session, physical activities, all these things. And so when this other judge came in, we had a guest speaker. One of the guys told other judges, like, hey, do you know Judge Faruqui is actually the guy that detained us, several of us, and put us in here? And I think that judge and the speaker were kind of taken back. I was like, look, the first time I came here, I was honestly a little nervous to be sitting next to somebody that I had put into jail. And it was the most vocal reaction I ever got in any one of these sessions. That one guy said, why'd you say that, Judge Faruqui? I was like, oh, I mean, because I signed your detention order. He said, you didn't put me in here. I put myself in here. I said, respectfully, I get what you're saying. I appreciate that, but like, I signed the order. And then there were three guys there who I detained and said, Judge Faruqui, you didn't do it. I did it. It's me. That's why I'm here. And, whatever it is, right or wrong, I'm going to sort it out. But I mean, the humility of somebody while incarcerated to take that higher road was really amazing to me. And I think, again, it comes from the amazing program that they have there, but also reflects on the humanity of those folks, that they're able to hold on to that even in this place where it can be very difficult, as long as people are willing to engage with them and talk with them civilly and listen to them, that can really have an enormous impact.
Yeah, I think that's really amazing to hear, and I know you kind of alluded to this earlier, but within like these interactions with the community and these individuals that you interact with, was I want to hear a little bit more about like the personal impact it has on you throughout this involvement with civic education, both as a judge, but also like as an individual.
Yeah, well, it's hard to know sometimes with the judge part and the individual part where they begin and end, because it's unlike many jobs, it really becomes your identity, right? Even when you're out on the street, people say, hi, Judge. And I'm like, no, my name is Zia. I'm a human being. That's the name my parents give me, but they just can't do it. And so um, it is an easy answer. What does it do for me as a judge? When I'm speaking to other judges and encouraging them to try this, it's rewarding. It filled up my cup. Court is hard. I mean, there's very rare in a situation in court where only one side is unhappy with you. Usually both sides are unhappy with you because either they thought they should have won and why this takes so long, or you didn't give them a full win. And so civil or criminal, it doesn't matter. People are usually frustrated about the outcome. They're frustrated about the process, the length of time, the cost that they may be incurring. So all these things, there's just a lot of negative sort of vibes there. And when you go to this, even when students are frustrated with the court or they don't think what you do is fair, I have not left once where students aren't excited, I'm not excited, and you're just like energized. You just want to like line up the next one. My mom always tells me that after, I'm only child, but she said after she had me, she was like, okay, I'm ready to have the next baby. And the doctor was like, I've never heard that from somebody afterwards. Fortunately, I think for all of us, maybe humanity, there was only one child that came to share my genetic code, but that's what I feel like afterwards. I mean, we'll have a moot court or this candid conversations where people talk about what brought them in the law and then taking question and answers, or we're doing a hypothetical on a Fourth Amendment backpack search, or students walking out of a classroom in protest, and the students like, when can we come back? We want to do this again. And that's really exciting to see their enthusiasm. And just from my perspective as somebody who is a parent and someone's of a generation or two ahead of them, to see their enthusiasm, to see young people or people in a situation like in a jail where they're it's easy to imagine where they may not have a lot of hope or motivation, to see that hope and motivation there and to be just a tiny part of that spark to fan that flame. It's amazing. You just want to like, how can I do more of this? How do I want to, you want to continue again? As I said, people understandably are frustrated by the national discourse right now, and you don't know where can you get in to try to treat this. Here's a place to do it. Go talk to students. Go volunteer at a community college. Go to talk to veterans. There's, as I was meeting with judges yesterday, again, at Baby Judge School, to talk to them about civic education, how to get involved. find your group, whatever it is, the rural group, farmers, um, your religious community, whatever it is, you have a group of people and just go talk to them. What is the judiciary? How does our law get created? How does it work? And why is civil discourse important? When we're in court, why do not people talking over each other? Why do not people shouting, name calling? How do we think that people can change hearts and minds?
Yeah, you kind of read my mind there because my last question for you was, for those who are interested in getting started or, getting involved in the kind of work that you do with civic education that ranges in great diversity. I would love to know what it takes for you to prepare these kinds of interactions or any expert tricks you can share with the group in getting involved with such work.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that we need to understand as a country is this a participatory democracy. It's not one for people to sit on sidelines, and voting is not the uh, sum total of our democratic and civic involvement. There's so much more that we need to do, and part of it, again, is a very community-based thing. And so, it's an easy answer. Everyone went to an elementary school of some kind, a home school, a public school, a private school, a religious school, whatever it is. Reach out to the school. I mean, I am the world's biggest cold emailer. I'll cold email. Again, helps to have now a title ahead of my name. But I just say, hi, I saw that you're an administrator of the school. I'm really interested in supporting the work that you do. If you're looking for a place that you need to take a field trip to, here's our courthouse. But you don't have to have a court. You simply, I say, I want to jump on Zoom and talk about my experiences of going to law school, et cetera, whatever it is, being a dentist, going to become an accountant, working in IT, whatever it is. And I don't know if we have internships or things like that, but happy to talk to students. If someone wants to shadow. I always tell students that they think like they're not yet ready to do this. I say, that's not true. Think of high school or middle school or elementary school you. They would be blown away to meet the current version of you. And they want the people who are there, the elementary high school version of you, the actual ones of them you right now, they would love to, right? Because they just, I think people feel isolated and they're not really sure what's going on. And so the opportunity to jump in and hear from somebody who cares, because that's all it's about at bottom. It's about showing that you care, that you're willing to show up, right? It's a lot about being a parent. I've learned is just showing up means so much to a kid because it shows that they care. That's showing that. And so getting involved is really easy. I mean, I reject anyone that says like it's too hard, I don't know how to. It's not hard. You don't need to have a special know-how. Find anybody, right? Like there's so many different places to do it. The YMCA, the local Rotary Club, I've done that. I've done all sorts of different places. I went to Guantanamo Bay, but virtually, because there's a school there, like a Little House on the Prairie style school, which my clerks didn't know what that was, and I was very frustrated with them being too young. I won't ask you if you know the reference, but like the school is like K through 4 and then 5 through 7, and they're the family of the veterans, the active military members who are there. Their kids are in school, and so get a chance to talk to them. It was great. I didn't know anything about Guantanamo base, the veterans' lives there, things like that, and hearing from the kids was amazing. And then just talking about what happens in court, how did I become, my path to being here. It was really gratifying, and then to hear their sort of message afterwards from the students of how appreciative they were. And so, in terms of sort of turnkey, that's where I'll always plug Rebecca Fanning, and she is somebody who has a lot of resources. There are tons of national civics organizations, teacher organizations. Teachers have syllabi that they've already prepared. We found, just again through cold emailing, I emailed 2 organizations. Mikva Challenge, it's one that's in D.C. and Chicago, and I said, hi, I see you do civics education work. I love their logos. Democracy is a verb. And so I don't know how I could get involved. And they said, here's how you get involved. Come down to an event. We have a soapbox challenge where students get up and speak on a soapbox. Great. Another one was Just the Beginning. So they're these national organizations. Just, email, ask, how can I get involved? And they have their materials already prepared. You just go there and show up like a good judge. You don't need to be a judge, but like a good judge, you show up to work, your law clerks, attorneys, and it's all there. You just slot in, and people are just looking for your authentic, natural self. They don't need you to be, if you're an introvert, you don't need to be an extrovert. If you're not super up on the Bill of Rights, that's okay. You can talk about just your experience going and voting, or your experience in college, and seeing other students getting very involved politically and how it didn't really resonate with you, but you're curious about it now. Whatever your experience is, students people in places that are underserved, they want to hear from you. And so give it a try. My experience has uniformly been once people have gone to one of these events with me, be they in a jail or a school, once they get the bug is they get the bug is bitten by them, they're bitten by the bug. They get the sort of excitement in there. I was like, I got to do this. I can't. I'm just not just a one time thing, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, I hope everyone who's tuning in on this is inspired by, whether that's cold emailing or jumping in those organizations to really get themselves involved in civic education. And that goes for myself as well. But as a member of the Berkeley Judicial Institute, I want to thank you again, Judge Faruqi, so much for the amazing insights on your civic engagement. Thank you so much.